Okay. Well, that bio was purposely tongue-in-cheek, snarky, funny. I didn't understand that they were going to read it.
You thought it was for their private amusement?
I don't know what it was. You just asked me to send it. Well, welcome. It's so exciting. This is a packed house, Lily. You have a lot of friends.
Yes, I do.
Can we take a moment to look around in this room? It makes me so happy to be in the rare book room at the Strand. Makes me happy, but a little sad. Are we going to lose all this?
Don't have dark thoughts.
Okay.
Not tonight.
Okay. Anyway, we're here to celebrate Lili Anolik and Didion and Babitz. I'm sure all of you have heard of Joan Didion. And maybe some of you, half of you, have heard of Eve Babitz. But Lili knows a lot about both. And
yes.
Yeah. Can I tell our meet cute story or no?
Yeah, no, I love it.
Because Lili's a new friend. And we met 6 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right, Carole.
We met at a Burger King. She asked me to go to this Burger King down in Liberty Place.
It's my pickup line. It's my.
I mean, I thought that was really weird. But I had sort of heard that she'd written this cool book called Didion and Babitz. So I was like, all right, I'll go meet this girl at the Burger King. And so I go there, and she even has a crown on, like a paper crown.
I do it upright. Yeah, I had the Burger King crown on.
I was like, who is this girl? And it was like a writing. What do you call it? A writing?
Well, any of you guys know Matt Starr? He does
Dream Baby Press.
Dream Baby Press, and he does these downtown events. So it wasn't even my thing.
It was her thing.
Yeah.
She was moderating it. I had never heard of Dream Baby Press. Or Lili Anolik, except for this book. So she, I guess, she would give prompts. It would be you walk into your guide.
It was all sex prompts. That's what Matt wanted. So that's what it was.
Yeah, but they were low key sex prompts.
I tried to do it low key, but he liked it jacked up.
Yeah.
At any rate.
And then there were 30 of us. It was packed Burger King, and then 6 or 7 people would read their little stories. You had 2 minutes to write a story, freestyle rapping, but a story. And then some of the braver ones would read them out loud. And I would say, honestly, 3 out of 5 were all about anal sex.
Yeah,
it was and I'm like, where am I? I'm in this brightly lit Burger King. This one is wearing a crown. But that was our beginning.
Yeah, I was trying to approximate an acid trip for you, so I hope it worked.
But the cool thing about it is oh man, she's Eve. I just thought she's like a wild child. And every time we would have coffee or go to drinks and go for walks and stuff, she'd always be like, I gotta go. So she was always running off to some place, and I just thought, this is my new cool, much younger,
Then you found
friend.
out. Then you found out.
Well, yeah, but I didn't find out
realize
for
I had kids.
a while.
I was running off to take care of kids.
I'm like, she's even, does that make me Joan? If Joan hadn't written a word in 10 years, I would be Joan. And I was so pleased until I realized she's married her high school sweetheart.
That's right.
And she's got 2 boys, and she's always running off to play squash or watch them play squash.
That's my reality, my glamorous reality.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, she's both Joan and Eve, and that leaves me just to be the friend of.
Yeah, right. Come on.
So. Do you want to read something from? Can you hear me now? Oh yeah, you can.
No, I don't want to read. Just go right into the questions. No one needs to hear me
I
fucking
wrote
read.
some questions down because I know you like. I know you like to talk.
Yeah, I'm a yacker, so let me do it.
Yeah. But if you've all not read this yet, you have to buy it, because if you're Joan Didion fans, you're gonna die. Because I'm a big Joan Didion fan. I mean, I read them all, Slouching,
White Album,
Run River, White Album, Play It As It Lays, all of them, when I used to read. And I just and also she wrote Magical, thinking her husband passed away around the same same year as my husband passed away. So we were both writing these memoirs, and so I started reading this, and I'm telling you, you'll be shocked. It's like a whole different side to Joan.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's like Joan, but if Joan was having a lot of sex.
You reduce everything to that, Carole.
No, I don't. But it was like, first of all, she's like a chaste, kind of
she is
very
chaste, I
wholesome
think.
person.
Yeah.
And she is still that, but like when you start reading this book, you'll realize there's a whole nother like very cool side to her, and not like cool customer, like cool. Anyway, so Joan, Didion, and Eve Babitz, they couldn't be any more different.
Yes.
Any more different. But they died 3 days apart, right?
6 days? I want to say 6 days. Very, very, very tight.
Right. So in my view, that makes them soulmates. They
Yes.
definitely were soulmates in
sure.
another life.
I like that thought.
Yeah, because it's strange because their life like they were together, then they grew apart, and then they died like the same day.
Yeah,
basically.
there was a really funny tweet that went around that said, like, Joan couldn't let Eve have the moment. She had to upstage her. It was pretty funny. I really laughed, like it was funny.
And that says everything about that relationship.
I'm pretty sure she didn't time out her death, but it was a funny tweet for sure.
And they died so differently too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your book that I loved, and by the way, this is like I honestly, when I said like when I used to read, there's a long stretch of time when I really haven't picked up a book.
Yeah.
Like to read, and I'm telling you, this book, when I started reading it, I just like it sort of got me into reading books instead of
So
just
happy
like
I brought you
Instagram
back.
captions.
Yeah, that is
you
so
know?
great.
Like dog earring and circling words, and like so it's really great. I thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Carole.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you describe there a lot. You say it's an alliance, but it's more to like a situationship.
Their relationship.
Yeah, but it's like a situationship without the.
Or like it's, love hate.
Yeah,
like
you
I-
describe it as profound as love and as profound as hate.
Yeah. Well, because I always think like.
Yeah, I don't want to.
So the way this happened, I had already written a book on Eve Babitz, and I really did not mean to write this book. I did not want to write this book. I was under contract with Scribner to write a book on Bennington College, class of 1986, Bret Easton Ellis, Donna Tartt, Jonathan Lethem. I'd given my all to Eve for like 10 years, and I was ready to move on, and Evie died in this kind of unexpected way. She'd been declining as long as I knew her. But
How long did you know her? Because you got to be
2012.
really close. Okay.
Yeah, 2012. I stalked her for 3 solid years, and then she let me take. Yeah, thank you for that, Walker. I appreciate the laugh. I stalked her for 3 years, and then she let me take her to lunch. So how it had happened is I read her. Does anyone here know who Joe Esterhaus is? All right, George. Of course you do. George. So he's the guy who wrote Basic Instinct and Showgirls, these kind of schlocky but great, slimy Hollywood movies that I love. And he went through this phase where he was writing like multiple memoirs, and I read all the memoirs. And one of them was called Hollywood Animal. And at the beginning of each chapter, I think this was in the British edition or something because I can't find it in the American, but he would start with a quote about Hollywood, and there was this quote from this. There was this great quote about LA and sex, and of course it was by Eve Babitz, and that's sort of how I picked up her scent, and I started Googling her, and she wasn't anywhere, right? Like all her books were out of print. I'd never heard of her. There was almost nothing about her online. And, no social media, nothing like that. But then I have a younger brother. He was at USC for business school. I was out visiting him in West Hollywood, and I just looked in the phone book, and there she was, and she was just a few blocks away from John's place. So I walked over, I left her a letter. She did not answer it. I called her. I did all the sad stalker stuff, and she completely ignored me. And then it took a while, but Vanity Fair agreed to let me write a profile on her. I hadn't written for Vanity Fair. It was all such a long shot. Then when it took them a year to say yes, it was just this whole long process. So I redoubled my efforts to get in touch with her, I immediately start stalking again, but she just has no interest in me. So I get very close with her sister, her cousins. There are so many ex-boyfriends. Thank God I got close with the ex-boyfriends, the guy who took the famous nude photo of her with Duchamp, everyone. And finally, she had her kind of longest term guy was a guy named Paul Roche. In the 60s, she was fucking his brother, Ed Roche.
Ed Roche?
Ed Roche, the famous
Oh
artist.
my God.
Yeah, no, she got everybody. She's just so good at that. But
So
I also,
jealous.
the brother I mentioned is really great looking. And Paul was Eve's boyfriend, but he was mostly into guys, and he loved John. He loved my brother. So I got him to pay attention to me that way. Then just pimping out my poor brother. Then Eve got curious. I guess she got curious because she called Paul one day and she said, okay, she can take me to lunch. So I flew to LA the next day, and that's how we started. But it was like disastrous because nobody knew she had Huntington's. I mean, I just thought she was having a series of strokes. You know, I knew she was deteriorating, but she was pretty nuts. And the lunch, I barely made it like 19, 20 minutes with her at this lunch. And she dumped me so quick, and I really thought it was over. But then I called her the next day to thank her. You know, I just like made myself do the polite thing, and she said, next time I want you to take me for barbecue. So I was sort of in. You know, I just would buy her lots of food, which she liked. I don't even know why I'm telling you this.
Because it's so interesting
Oh,
the
the
way
friend-
that you
yes.
the way that you met her, and then you
The
didn't
relationship with Joan.
Yeah, but you didn't know that there was a relationship with
No
Joan
idea.
when you first were talking to
No
Eve.
idea. No, I mean, like, I knew they knew each other, and she would reference Joan sometimes, but she was a very forthcoming person, and if you asked her a question, she would answer it, but she wouldn't volunteer information. And her life was very mysterious at that point because her memory was kind of in the toilet. She wasn't in good shape. The books weren't even all in print yet. I didn't know always what to ask, you know?
Yeah.
Like there were huge blanks. At any rate, she dies, and she lived in this rat hole of a hellhole of a shithole of an apartment. It was beyond belief in terms of filth and chaos. You just couldn't move in it. There was no way anything survived that environment. Like the idea that she would have archives was insane. But what happened was her mother was a preservationist by trade. And so the mother had saved these boxes of Eve's like correspondences, like journals, drafts. And what she did, Evie's hand, so in the 90s, Evie was in this horrible fire. She'd been kind of a beauty when she was young, you know.
She was, with very large.
Yeah, double D's.
breasts.
And like her sex, thank you, Carole, for doing the
Well,
approximation.
no, you talk about that a lot.
Well, it's like a
Eve
huge thing.
Babitz with the great
Eve
tit-
Babitz with the
Eve
great big
Babitz
tits.
with the great
Yeah,
big
that's
tits.
what's her nickname.
By the
at
way,
first.
I asked ChatGPT
Yeah.
to scan your book to
Yeah.
see how many times the word
Tits.
tit showed up, and
Many
it
a
wouldn't
time.
do it.
Fucking
My ChatGPT sucks, by the way.
what a prissy chat, GPT.
It's prudish and not even that smart.
That is
Like,
not a winning combination.
No.
At any rate, yeah. So she had been this real beauty, and then in her 50s, it was just some dumb accident. Eve was always a little bit clumsy, and I don't know. You guys all look so young, but in the 90s, women smoking cigars was a thing. Like Demi
It
Moore,
was? I was
Demi
in the
Moore.
90s.
Madonna was doing it.
Demi Moore did it once for a Vanity Fair cover.
Well, those used to count, and I write for Vanity Fair. So at any rate, Evie was into that phase too, you know. And Evie, so she lit up in the car and dropped the match on her skirt, and she just went up in flames, and it was like awful. It was awful. It was 3rd-degree burns over 50% of her body. They didn't think she'd survive. Her face was undamaged, but it was just a mess. And so she kind of retreated from public life at that time, and I think the Huntington's was kicking in. So it was a double whammy. But, you know, she wasn't well when I knew her. Anyway, her hand didn't work great. Like, she didn't have great dexterity. So when her mother packed up these boxes, this would have been in, like, the late 90s. This is after the fire, and Eve was moving into some apartment. Anyway, the mother, like, duct taped it. What's the thing? It's that clear plastic tape that's really tough. Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone. Packing tape. So they were all over the boxes, and I think Evie must have gotten frustrated, like her hands couldn't get through them, you know? So they got left alone. Miraculously, they got left alone.
Because she would have destroyed them.
She would have destroyed them, not out of, like, animus or anything, but she just would have strewn them around. And
Right.
whatever. Because, like, that apartment, it was like there was something dead in there for sure. It was like, I always say, like, it wasn't, like, I sound prissy. I sound like your chat GPT. But it was crazy. I'm telling you. So, like, and when Jewish Family Services came to clean it, at one point they had to wear hazmat suits. It was nuts. At any rate,
wow.
Evie dies. Her sister Mirandy finds these boxes at the back of a closet, and I remember she called me, and it was like Christmas time, and my stomach dropped because I knew it was going to be full of information, and I knew I was going to have to revise shit, and it was just like, oh, I'm back in. So I just meant to revise the book.
But isn't that's like a dream, a fantasy of every like journalist writer, that there's like a secret hidden
before they
box of
published the fucking
letters?
book they spent 3 years on, you know what I mean? Before
Well,
there was
now-
just the timing. But anyway, I
Well,
went.
now we have this book.
And now you got this book. But I went to LA, and I the first item I pulled out of the boxes was this letter Eve had written to Joan Didion in 1972.
Amazing.
It was an amazing letter. It was a tirade in the form of a letter. It was like Eve's. It was, and it was like eavesdropping on a lover's quarrel, right? And it asked that question. I actually wrote about this letter for Vanity Fair in the September 2022 issue, and the pull quote that Vanity Fair used was, Could you write what you write, Joan, if you weren't so tiny? Which is so great.
So good.
It's so good.
It's so good. She couldn't do a lot of the things that she did if she wasn't so tiny. Like,
yes.
It really came out in the book.
No, it does. And, and it's like wild because she's kind of accusing, like Joan was actually Eve's kind of greatest mentor, is the one who got her published. And so she was completely beholden to her. And I think also really admired her, felt kind of disdain and anger towards her, but also intense admiration. And here she's calling her a betrayer of women. It was quite a letter.
I mean, you had to write a whole book on it.
You had to, but then all of a sudden I knew it was a totally different relationship than anything I had anticipated. But what I was going to say, you're going to like this, Carole. This will make you laugh. So my guy, I have a nice husband, the nice guy who has been around for a while, and he does, like, he's a doctor and stuff, and he's busy, but I make him do my social media because I just don't want to do it.
He does.
So, and he does nice little graphics. He's visual, whatever. So he posted this Vanity Fair piece, and I'd been in conversations with Courtney Love because of the Bennington podcast.
That's another thing. She was always talking about Courtney Love when I first met her. I thought she was a wild child.
Yeah, no, I love Courtney too.
I also thought she was like 30.
That's so nice of you. No, 46. That's so nice. Well, my birthday's soon. I'm turning 47. Anyway, so she, at any rate, so all of a sudden, Courtney had dumped me many a time already. Like, we were going to do something together. She keeps dumping me, and I'm used to it at this point. But at any rate, like, so I post this piece, or Robbie posts this piece on my Instagram, and all of a sudden, Lilac something, like it's some weird name, is going, these poison pen letters are nothing compared to the ones Madonna and I used to exchange. And she said, it was amazing. It was really amazing. And she goes,
like lightning striking twice.
Yeah, it was so fucking thrilling, Carole. But I didn't know who it was at this point. And then it goes, I have other short friends, but for some reason, Madonna's shortness enrages me. And it was great. And then it goes, yo, Lily, check your DMs. Or do I have to wake my social people in LA? So,
Oh my God.
like, she's the alpha. I go check my DMs. I do as she says. She goes, it's Courtney Love Trap. Anyway, we get into a conversation. But I could see that was like the moment where it occurred to me that, like, this dynamic, it's like you get the Joan or the Madonna, and they're kind of small and trim and precise and controlled and kind of dead-eyed and eye on the prize. And it's like the intense kind of attraction, repulsion that type of woman has with the Courtney Eve woman, who's like a walk on the wild side and kind of unconstrained socially, and kind of there's an unfettered recklessness to this person, emotionally sloppy, but kind of there's some kind of emotional purity to this person, and you kind of get the intense kind of attraction and repulsion between them, And it's like, I always think of this as kind of the nonfiction version of My Brilliant Friend. Do you know? And it's like a thing you don't really talk about. It's not exactly a friendship. They're definitely not lovers, but it's like volatile the way lovers. It's like a very intense relationship.
That's the hate part. As profound as hate.
Yes. Exactly, Carole. That's it.
Do you think, if not in the writing way, because do you feel that they were in competition just purely from their writing, or is there just in competition as women because they were so opposite, and kind of felt like Joan was a little jealous of Eve and her wildness and her Jim Morrison boyfriend, and then she tried to recreate that a little with the Franklin house. Talk about the Franklin house.
I for sure will. Can I talk about Morrison first, because I think it's like so valuable. Like, Evie's fucking Jim Morrison, and her view on Jim Morrison, she knows him, like he's personal to her, and to her he's a boy who used to be chubby, who took acid for one summer and became a beauty. That's how she sees him. It's this very personal viewpoint on Morrison. Whereas Joan, and there's a famous scene in White Album where Joan goes to a Doors recording session, and that was Eve's doing. Eve made that happen. So Eve's not mentioned in the White Album, but her spirit's in there. And the way Joan sees the Doors, she calls them missionaries of apocalyptic sex. She believes the persona, and that's what she likes. So you kind of just have their two different viewpoints on this one particular Los Angeles, which I love. But I don't, I always wonder, Joan was incredibly generous to Eve.
She got her published for, in Rolling Stone or somewhere. Yeah, she started her.
And there's no way Eve would have happened without Joan. No way. She gets the introduction. Joan introduces her.
Then I feel like Joan dropped her.
Yeah, and I think that is totally true. And also, she agreed to edit Eve's first book, which Eve never told me, which is crazy. We talked about it 10,000 times. Joan edited Eve's Hollywood, and then Eve fired her. She felt that she couldn't take Joan's criticism. She felt Joan was trying to kill her soul. But Joan was actually great to her. But then in my own mind, I think, Joan haunted Eve's imagination, and I would imagine for every one thought Joan had about Eve, Eve had 50 about Joan. You know, I think it was more that situation. And I really think that they were intensely involved in the early 60s and 70s. And then my guess is that Joan Joan viewed her as a casualty of the 70s, you know, someone who didn't survive the 70s, which I actually think is true.
Yeah,
if you're honest, I mean, she really got coked out. She calls it swallowed over boogie, fucked out. You know,
she didn't publish that much after.
And it wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah.
So she was, but I mean, she persisted as a human being and all that. But my guess is that Joan was someone like in her rearview mirror, or someone she'd left in the dust long ago.
But she also says, like, you know, going back to the tiny thing that's so fascinating, because I think I recalled, didn't she write something about? I want to ask you about this, about being her small stature made her job as a journalist and a writer, specifically a journalist, I guess she was writing, so much easier because people forgot that they should be concerned, you know, that it was against their best interest to be in a room with her. And then she went on to say writers are always selling someone out.
Famously.
I mean, are they?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you did in this book or?
Well, I don't feel like I'm selling anybody out, but I know how confused it gets. Because I feel like what I do is unseemly, you know, like.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I like look at myself as like a violator and an infiltrator, and like I'm trying to probe people's innermost psyches. This is not like a wholesome activity. Yeah. And I know that like my ethics as far as this goes is I would never write about somebody I wasn't like totally compelled by, fascinated by, very into. Yeah. So that's like the only, like I've never done a hit piece, you know, like I just don't believe in that. But, it's funny because like Evie really was fairly gaga most of the time with me. Like she would have really great lucid moments, but I wasn't dealing with someone with a full deck. But like I read a lot about Bret Easton Ellis, and we know each other well at this point. And he's only ever been my subject, but we hang out socially a lot. And I love it with him because he's sort of into getting violated, like he's into it. So it's like our own kink. And like, I feel like, because he basically does not like girls around. Like he does not like women around. And in fact, I brought women to dinner with him before, and he's just like, never bring a woman again. Never. But like he lets me do it to him, you know, which I really like. So I feel like we share a kink. So that's great. But it's like a complicated and kind of dark relationship. Speaking
of complicated relationships, I want to, first of all, I want to know, I know I keep going back to this, but I want to know everything about the Franklin house. Like who, like Earl McGrath, this character
Earl's
who is
so good.
Amazing. And even like a young Harrison Ford. I mean, it's
on Evie's fuck list.
So, I know. And of course, Noel.
Noel's not on Franklin Avenue.
Well,
Noel's New York.
Before. But we need to tell everyone.
Carole, thank you for setting me up on Noel. I love Noel.
No, we love Noel, and Noel was Joan's.
The wet beating heart of Joan, I think.
The love of her life.
That's my feeling. And it was like...
Other than John.
Well, no,
John.
I think Noel was it. But it was wild. So I was like,
I fell in love with Noel.
Oh my God. I could feel it. He was 98 when I was interviewing him. He was completely... like a human wreck. He's 1,000, but he still had that masculine force and power. He was great.
He really came off the page. So like,
I love that, Carole.
So hot.
Yeah, he was. I think he was. He's a total bad boy. And I think if you're very, like if you've read Joan really attentively, I think you know when you're reading, particularly her novels, you always get the sense that she's writing to this kind of worldly, older man of the world, like kind of a Hemingway character. And that's not, like John Donne had many good qualities, but he wasn't that kind of guy. He was more gossipy, had a volatile temper. He wasn't this character she was writing to. And as soon as you met Noel, you knew that that's who it was. Yeah. And what had happened was this originally just started as a revision. At a certain point, I realized, 9 months in, that this is going to be about both of them. And any of you know the writer Stephanie Danler? She did Sweet Bitter. So she's a friend, and we were hanging out in LA, and I just come from the Huntington Library where all Eve's papers are housed. And I was kind of telling her I'm like done with the first draft, and she's like, well, did you talk to Noel Parmentel? Because he's like this mythic figure in Joan's past. Like nobody really...
It's so good.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I was like, look, he's 98 years old. I wrote him a couple of letters. I tried him a number of ways. Nothing. And I'm like, he's so old, I just got to leave him alone. And she's like, you cannot, you cannot do this book without Noel. Okay, so the thing I knew about Noel, I knew he liked women, like he was like, I don't know what the poet, like a pussy hound, like he liked women. I knew that about him.
Wait, are you being shy saying pussy hound?
To you, Carole, I know you're a virgin and I don't want to upset you.
No, it was the anal sex. Was
Yeah, the other. I don't cover your ears. I don't want to upset you. But anyway, I knew that about him, and so I just thought maybe if I could get him on the phone, and just because I have a female voice, and so I went back to my hotel room after Stephanie, and I was like knew she was right, and I call. He also is in the white pages. I love that about older people. They're actually in the white. They're in the phone book. And he answered, and he said, come on over. And he was in Connecticut. So I flew back from LA to New York and then drove right out to Connecticut. And he was fucking heaven. He was so great. And I was the angel of death on this book, just so you all know. So many people died right after I interviewed them. Like I did 6 months with Noel.
Did he die?
Yeah, we did 6 months together. We talked all the time. Dead. Like Joan's Berkeley boyfriend. He was lovely too. Dead. Yeah. Dan Wakefield was fucking Eve in 1971. Eve's friend since the 50s. Dead. I just killed everybody off like within 3 months. They all just died.
No, I think that the opposite. I think they just hang on because they really wanted to tell their story, and they were just waiting for someone to come and ring their phone, knock on their door.
That was it.
And it was you. You were like the angel of light.
Or death, either one. I'm up for either. But like he was so incredible, and you got the sense like I feel like Joan's origin story, like she's such a self-mythologizer, and you thought you knew it. And of course, Griffin Dunn made that documentary about her. No mention of Noel. But I remember Noel said to me, without me, there is no Joan Didion. Now, that's probably overstating it slightly, but the career, she was so shy. Like what she turned into a style, her mysteriousness, her enigmatic quality, her Greta Garbo quality, she tricked that up into her whole style and mystique, and it was great. But when she started in New York right out of college, she was just an intensely awkward person. You know, it wasn't a style. It was like a pathology. She couldn't. And he was like one of those kind of behind the scenes guys. I feel like they don't make them anymore. You know, he was kind of highborn New Orleans, already had a wife and children, 2 sons, had fought in Iwo Jima, like, he was the guy who got Norman Mailer to run for mayor. He was behind all these documentary movies. He was making a movie of the Walker Percy movie, The Moviegoer. He knew absolutely everybody, and he had such a reputation. He was really famous. He wore a white suit. He was great looking, hard drinking, womanizing.
Like that just goes counter to everything everyone thinks they know about
And
Joan.
she was completely wild about him, and it was wild because also just finding her college boyfriend, the boy she was supposed to marry. You know, he had been together with her since she graduated from high school all the way through Berkeley, through her first year in New York, and they were going to marry. He was going to have a car dealership in Bakersfield. Can you imagine? He was really lovely and nice, and he just told me she came back. They, of course, weren't sleeping together. It was the 50s. She told him she was sleeping with Noel and that he slapped her on. She gave him a lot of personal details he gave to me, but it was like an intense physical, romantic, sexual relationship, and she was wild about him, but and he said to me, Joan was like a Southern girl about getting married. She wanted to get married, and I was not going to do that. And she has a nervous breakdown that she talks about in Goodbye to All That. Noel said, I decided it was time for her to get married, and I picked a husband for her. And it was wild. Like it was this accolade, wild. You know. So I mean, and the confirmation was from Dan Wakefield, who was Eve's boyfriend in 1971, kind of a big writer in his time, who's since not kind of fallen off. But he was best friends with Joan and Noel. Incidentally, he was best friends with Joan, and he wrote the review in the New York Times of Slouching Toward Bethlehem, which is such a conflict of interest. I can't believe he did it. I'm like, that's so unethical. But I was like, Dan, you can't, whatever. But Dan confirmed all this. So it was like, so I feel like she was, you know, marrying John Donne at the beginning was marrying her way of marrying Noel, and she would go to him with all her personal problems, all her professional problems. It was Noel who got her first byline. He got her published in the National Review and Esquire, all these places. And then her first novel that you alluded to, Run River, it was turned down all over town, and he bullied, just through sheer will and force of personality, he bullied this Russian oligarchy, whatever. I don't know, some Russian... Ivan Oblensky into publishing the book. I mean, she dedicates it to him. He's a main character in that book.
The book is really all about Noel.
Yeah, Noel, exactly. Noel,
like who knew and
she
who
kept
Noel
doing.
was.
She kept turning him into
It's
fictional
so
characters until
it's
finally
so
he blew up at her when she made him Warren Bogart in Book of Common Prayer. But it was like fascinating. So to find this guy, you felt like you were finding the secret Joan. You know,
it's so good.
Sorry, I just really went on there.
No. I mean, the whole part of like, I don't know why. I guess because Joan's persona, and like as you called it, I think something like she stage managed her life.
Yeah,
she was very calculated and careful, and like so as I'm reading, I'm just like there were so many, almost like on every page, I'd be like, oh my god.
Well,
really?
it sounds like a put down, but I always felt like her kind of ruthlessness and ambition. I love that about her. You know, there was something like magisterial about it. And nobody ran a career better than Joan Didion. I don't think in the history of American letters, apart from maybe Fitzgerald and Hemingway. Like, she's so big. She was so clever about the person. And I think John.
And part of it was because, and I think Eve, I think, was alluding to this because it's in the book and other places that her small stature, because she's so tiny, she, like all the male authors, male writers, they were okay with Joan, right? Like Joan wasn't like a female writer. She was just sort of like, because there was something a little asexual about her perhaps, and like small. Yeah.
I mean, she was child size for sure. That's right. But
and
I
like
think
childlike almost.
yes, because just she does not have an adult physicality. But like, I feel like I'm much softer on this because she's born in 1934. She didn't want to be ghettoized, be a woman writer. She wanted to be a big writer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she kind of did what she had to do, but that involved, I feel like the guys would let one girl into the club.
Yeah,
sort of.
It's true.
You know what I mean? It's like that.
Yeah.
It's still, in some levels, I guess it could still be viewed that way, but it for sure was in her era. And so like, I always think like it's very revealing who Joan had as a role model, as an artist, and who Eve did. Joan picks Hemingway, right? And he's kind of macho and bluff, and he's a winner, right? Like he's big game hunting and womanizing and lots of wives and a big public life. But a winner. And Eve picks Marilyn Monroe. And like Marilyn Monroe, in retrospect, is probably the biggest cultural figure of the 20th century. But during her life, it was a hard life. Like she thought of herself as an artist and was an artist, but was treated like a bimbo and was discounted. So it's almost like,
well, Eve was treated like a bimbo also.
I mean, like,
and
like,
she considered herself an artist. I mean, she posed
all of it's
nude,
true.
but for that.
Eve Babitz with the great big tits, that's what they called her. What I mean is like, it's like Eve picked that path in a funny way, And they both wrote about feminine consciousness, kind of feminine sensibility, feminine stratagems. But I would say that Joan, there was kind of a muscularity to her prose. Like there was kind of a masculine quality, and Eve's was kind of discursive and digressive and kind of super feminine to me.
And Joan wrote so much more though.
Oh, she had a much bigger
she
career.
had John, like to take care of her in a way.
Yes, and I always think there's like a great book could be written on women writers who marry their editors. What I mean? I love Janet Malcolm. She's such a sweet spot for me. Janet Malcolm dumped her first husband.
What about like Joyce Carol Oates? She's written like 400 books, and I think
At
she
least.
was married for 50.
That sounds
70.
right.
And then her husband died, and then she married like a month later. No, we'll
you got to move
Google
on,
that.
Carole.
But no, I think these women that are putting out so much, they have that guy.
Oh yeah, that like
man support. Like they can't do it otherwise.
Yeah,
so hard.
Kind of the way like a lot of the male writers needed a wife. Like Nabokov had Vera. Like I don't think he could have been Nabokov without Vera. No, it's absolutely true. But like I think of that like Sylvia Plath. Ted Hughes was a great poet, but he was like her shrewdest editor. So it's amazing to have that in house. And I feel like also John was very transparently and overtly an operator, and that allowed, in terms of career and in terms of Hollywood, and that allowed Joan to kind of maintain her mystique and stay above it all,
Yeah.
So she was very, very smart about all this. And I guess like part of it is like you just want to know how she did it. So that's kind of what this book is about, because like that's the career you would want. You would not want Eve's career where it takes some psychopath in 2010, whatever, to have not enough to do with her time and being depressed and frustrated to stalk you. Do you know, like it's like Joan ran it much better, but like how she did it, I always wanted to know how do you do it, Joan?
Well, she did it because I think in partly she had John.
Oh yeah.
That was 90%, and obviously she had the talent and all that, but she
the
had
talent and the ambition. But she arranged her life to be a great writer. Like I think she was a great writer. I think she was a writer almost before she was a human.
Yeah.
And that's like interesting to me. I liked all of that.
Yeah.
As I said, the ruthlessness and ambition are my favorite of her qualities.
This is a question for both of you, but maybe I'll start by addressing you, Lili. So much of the press around this book, I'm so intrigued by this comment of you, quote, like embracing gossip as a historical record. And I'm curious, for both of you as writers, but also as people in the various facets of your life, when gossip crosses that sort of murky line into maybe truth, historical record per se, is it the person that tells you a piece of information? Is it the way it's delivered to you? And maybe that we can relate this to the book in some way, but I'm really curious about that. It's been so interesting of like a phrase, gossip as historical record.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it when people use that term.
Really?
No, I don't mean you. I didn't mean you.
No, that's interesting. I love it.
Well, I hate it because like to me it's like some way of putting down women in gay gay men. That's to me, like, because I feel like it's a way. It's like, and I would get it. I remember like it was like somebody in the New Yorker was like recommending my Bennington podcast and says it's so gossipy. Like it's also research. You fucking asshole. I mean, you know what I mean? And I feel like Eve, I start the book with this great quote from Eve. She's writing a letter to Joseph Heller, who'd been an early mentor of her and gave her a blurb for Slow Days, Fast Company. And she found his blurb condescending. And she said, well, what do I have except gossip? She goes, I'm not let into the top room like with the official men. I have to learn things through gossip. That's how women learn, get information. And she said, and besides, I like gossip. I like learning it that way. And I also just feel like, gossip is history. Like I think about this all the time. Before it becomes official, it's like before things like harden into the official story, it's like backstair gossip, innuendo. It's like rumor. Like that's kind of this. That's how people communicate. It just seems like it seems totally legitimate to me. But I understand what you're saying, crossing the line. I mean, we were talking about ethics. Like I also felt like Joan and John were fair game for me because they write so obsessively about their own marriage and they were very interested in being famous. But I was very careful about Quintana, the daughter, who was not a public figure. So I put as little of her, I heard huge amounts about Quintana, but I wouldn't put it in because she was a private figure to me. So there are ethics, but it is fucking murky. You please.
I mean, I only wrote books about me. I was gossiping about myself, like
which is totally allowed.
I didn't traffic in other gossip, obviously, although I knew a lot and heard a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an important mode of communication if in the right hands and in context, and like what you did in this book, sort of weaving all of those what one might call gossip, but was, like you said, research, interviewing people who's everyone has a different memory of the same event. So, it's just like in the right hands, that could be, it makes for a richer story, which is why I think this book is so dynamic. And it's so like, there's like gossipy parts, and then there's stuff that's just like straight up historical. And so
for sure.
It was, I don't write that way. I'm not even writing anymore anyway. So. It's really sad.
You'll come back. You're going to come back.
But yeah, I thought it worked perfectly. I thought your balance was perfect. And, you obviously knew, I know you, so I know you knew a lot more than what is in the book. So
can I say one other thing? Like, it's also it's also just like, this is also why I hate the term like biography. I hate the idea of an official version. I just think that's humiliating in this day and age. Like, we're in a post-Empire world. But what I was going to say is, like, I also find people's, as long as there's not overt lying, like they're not deliberately lying to you, I find people's memories that are wrong as just as revealing. Like, it's the impression they got. And I'm just going to give you one example from Courtney. I know I'm supposed to be talking about Joan and Eve. She was telling me sometimes, like, she'll like text with me for hours, and I'm just trying to keep up, like I'm doing other things or whatever. And she was I said something to her about the Harvey Weinstein. Like, when all that Me Too stuff was coming down, she was getting all this play because there was this interview with her on the red carpet in 2005, and they said, what advice would you give to young women coming to Hollywood? And she said, don't go to a hotel room with Harvey Weinstein, right? So it got a ton of play in 2017. Okay, so I said something about, like, it was great you got credit for that. And she goes, oh, that's nothing. And she said she never dates anything. She goes, I was on the set of Rounders. That's a movie from the late 90s. It was when she, I guess, was with Ed Norton. And she goes, Winona, I assume she meant Ryder. Somebody gave her what she thought was a soft Vicodin, which I think she means is a much stronger drug than she realized. And she goes to the Russian tea room with Harvey Weinstein and all these people, and she stands up and she said, hey, Harvey, how famous do I have to get before you rape me? What am I too Jewish looking for you? Right, it's wild. I cannot confirm this story. She was in the Russian, you can confirm parts of it, but I can tell she believes it. And it sounds probable. How do you fact check certain things? Like, where I'm going is like, this sounds kind of right. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. It's just like the way memory is so difficult. Like, you're reporting on this stuff and it means something. I don't know if it factually happened. I don't know if she mumbled it under her breath.
But if you're doing a story, or in this case a podcast about Courtney,
Yeah.
then all of her recollections are
Yes,
valid,
are valuable.
and that's what the story is.
Yes, and it's like a funny thing too. Oh, I was saying about Brett Ellis, like one of his friends had this memory of Brett showing up at Bennington as a freshman, and he said he had 2 suitcases. One was full of the manuscript that would be less than 0, and the other was full of drugs. And Brett said, that's fucking ridiculous. Yet this guy wasn't malicious, and they were still close. That was the impression Brett made. So that seems equally valid. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's part of the mythology of Brett. So, you know, it's like, that's what it's like. It's just it's so fuzzy. That's why it's like an official version seems
I think
nutty
you have to
me.
have like highly fine-tuned critical thinking
Yes,
skills
of course.
and to really like
Filter
weed
out.
filter out the obvious nonsense for, you know.
But sometimes
and
there's
to-
valuable nonsense.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's a very complicated thing. That was a much too long answer, but
What did y'all think of the portrayal of Joan in Griffin's book?
oh wow.
I thought it was pretty savage.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Yeah, it was savage. I mean, it's the coldness of that couple, right? Like, it's the coldness, like the Dominique stuff. I remember I got this story from the unofficial biographer of Dominic Dunn, and I fact checked it. I interviewed a couple of the people who had also heard it, and it was that. Do you guys know about Dominique Dunn? It was Dominic Dunn's daughter. She was a young actress, a friend of Brett's. And she had just been in, what's the famous movie, Poltergeist? Oh, God, George, you are invaluable
George is
today. She
George,
had been
can
in,
you come up here?
Yeah, George, come. You can sit in my lap. She'd been in Poltergeist, and she had a bad boyfriend, and he killed her, and it was awful. He strangled her and put her in a coma. Joan and John go over to offer support while she's in the coma, and Dominic is not using the telephone because they're waiting for the call from the doctor to take her off life support. And the phone isn't ringing. And Dominic doesn't see Joan, and he goes into the master bedroom. It's now his ex-wife's house. He goes into the master bedroom, and Joan is on the bed with her manuscript spread out before her on the phone with her editor. And she says, like, yes, meaning she wasn't going to stop. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
pretty ruthless.
that's just ruthless, but that's like, it was like she was a writer before she was a person. It was a savage thing. Though he doesn't comment on it, I think that's part of the power of it, maybe. I mean, you definitely, I remember Griffin told me this, like Joan basically asked him to do the documentary, and I think the documentary is a much softer.
He didn't talk about that. I mean, he didn't talk about that.
No,
in the
but I knew,
documentary.
no, he didn't, but I knew from Julian Wasser and from Brett that, you know, Brett had talked, like when he got interviewed for the documentary and cut out of it because he talked about Quintana's alcoholism and drug stuff, and Julian Wasser said things that they didn't want. It was just such an official version, like it's part of trying to control the image. But it comes out no matter what. So like Griffin really loved his aunt and uncle, but it's a savage portrait, absolutely.
These 2 women have really become extremely popular in the past like 5 to 10 years, especially
Yeah.
with like my like younger women.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of wondering why you think that is, why right now is the right time for it, and also maybe I feel like they can be sensationalized a lot, and
Yeah.
what your thoughts are on that.
Well, so, I mean, this is just, it sounds like a brag. I don't know how to say this. So I stalked her. Nobody had paid attention to her. I did this long piece on her for Vanity Fair, and the book started to get reissued. And it's not because of anything. She would have gotten rediscovered or discovered whether I did it or not. But I think that the reason it happened when it happened was because I think Eve is a literary kind of heroine, but I think she's also really a cultural heroine. People like who she is. And I think the reason that Vanity Fair piece did it was because I was able to put everything together. Like it was like the MASH note, like this was stuff that wasn't up there. It was like she took like the MASH note she wrote Joseph Heller when she was 19, and she said something like, "Dear Joseph Heller, I've got double D breasts. I'm sitting on Hollywood Boulevard in a wet bathing suit. I've written a novel." And it was like crazily charming. And then like
He responded.
Of course he responded. Are you crazy? Yeah, of course. He said, "Send me your novel," and he supported her and got her to Robert Gottlieb. But like it was like that, and it was like putting together her whole sex resume, and it was like, I think The Fire, which turns her into basically a mashup of Miss Havisham and Norma Desmond, it's all so glamorous and exciting. Like the life is huge. Like the album covers, the naked photo with Duchamp. Like Joan is Joan in all her photos, like the famous photos, but Eve has her Julian Wasser photographed her when she was 19. She was getting back at a married boyfriend who didn't invite her to a party because his wife was going to be there, and she was fucking pissed. So she took this photo because it was for a Duchamp retrospective, and her boyfriend was Walter Hopps, and he'd gotten Duchamp to agree to do this at this small LA museum. It was a huge deal. Anyway, she upstages him. She goes and poses naked because he had made nude descending a staircase, and he had famously left the art world to play chess, you know? So Julian Wasser's concept was to have him play chess with a nude girl. And Julian was an artist. He was a great photographer, but he gave Eve a choice. She could have a photo where her face showed or where her hair was covering it, and she chose hair covering it. Why am I telling you this? What was her persona. So it was just something about putting together her. She's that girl in that photograph. She's fucking Jim Morrison. She's the MASH note to Joseph Heller. She's also written these great books that are completely underappreciated. It was all this stuff together. So I think she became this thrilling figure for people. And then several of her books are like, she wrote a masterpiece, right? Slow Days Fast Company was a masterpiece. And I just feel like, I always say this because like I write a lot about the LA literary world. And Joan is such a big figure, she blots out the sun, right? And she was so big, and there was no balance to her, right? It was like she had this stage all to herself, but the world, like humans need a balance, yin and yang, masculine, feminine. You just need it, like the craftsperson, the improviser, the tits, the tininess, like you need it. And so Eve, it's like Eve was like tailor-made for it. And there's something about, they wrote about the exact same scene. They were all over each other. Like it was something like, I just think the world needed it. They needed it.
But you're saying they're discovering it now, right?
Well, Joan was always famous, but it's like
Yeah.
Eve is the new thing. But like they've gotten linked together.
Well, because of the work that you've done.
Yeah, but it was happening before, you know.
Not really.
Well, that's so nice of you to say, Carole. But at any rate,
I mean, it's just.
At
I'm
any
not
rate,
being nice. It's
you
the
are being
truth.
nice.
No,
And I
it's the
appreciate. I
truth.
love when you're being nice
It's
to me.
the truth.
But yeah, that's what I think. And they also just like my own feeling is like I don't think you endure anymore unless the persona like is captivating to people. I mean, people love Hemingway and Fitzgerald because they were characters in their own novels. Their lives were big. They were glamorous. they
Also,
were
I don't
tragic.
think people. I mean, I feel like if you're young and you're looking at that life, it's like they were able. Like Eve was able to do everything that she did, from the posing nude to fucking Morrison and a litany of others.
At all, yes.
And because you could just really live in the moment at the time. I feel like now everyone's a little bit more circumspect. And then you're looking back at those years and those people, the ones that really, were big and characters. And I'm sure that's part of the allure of it, is it's just they
No
were
question.
just living. And
it was private. It was private.
and everything was private, so you could make fuck a load of mistakes and continue with your career or whatever you were doing. I think that's part of the allure. At least
You want to know my theory?
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you. I actually think we're gonna return to that. Like I think social media, like now everyone's figured out that basically you have to pretend to be a politician, like in your public persona.
Yeah.
And people are gonna live privately again.
Oh well, one can only
Seriously.
hope.
Fingers fucking crossed, you know.
What about TikTok then?
I don't know. It's just my theory. Don't shit on it. You know.
No, I second that.
I like that.
I've heard you say before that you would compare, like if Joan Didion lived now, she would have a career similar to Lena Dunham, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
But I was curious if you'd thought about that question for Eve and where Eve would fit in 2025 in this world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just assumed she would be like on avant-garde YouTube. You know what I mean? I just don't think. I remember. Like, I just don't think.
Is that OnlyFans? She'd be an OnlyFans. I mean, she'd be crushing it.
She would be crushing it. She and her double D's would be crushing it.
She'd be making a lot of money.
She'd be which would be so great for her. She was
She'd
always
be so
broke.
good at it.
No, it'd be great for her. But no, I did like this long piece for Vanity Fair on Caroline Calloway, and she's kind of closer to Eve. Eve was not good at calculating. I can't. Lena Dunham like has a career, and it's like she's an auteur on that show Girls, and I just feel like for Joan, books would be too small. Not culturally like important enough. You don't have that kind of impact. So that's why I see her as a Lena figure. And then Evie is an artist, and Evie is wild, and she would just be in the outer reaches. I'm serious, of YouTube. That is my honest guess is where she would be. And she was an artist too, visual, so she would have liked YouTube.
And
Just
in the
a
end, I mean, Joan did. No, she didn't do the Was she still alive when they did the play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she was still alive.
So she
They're
was-
coaxing her to try to eat a half a sandwich in the Griffin documentary, like while they're making that play.
Oh, was it? I didn't
Yeah, they're
remember.
begging her to eat a sandwich. The long scene.
This
That's
is-
my
this-
father,
this
so I
is
don't
a-
know why you're.
This is a.
Can't you ask me in the car ride home?
I'm your shill. You know that.
Yeah.
This is a question of a general nature. As you know, I've read everything you've written, and I've always been profoundly moved by its rhythmic quality.
Thank you, Dad.
So tell me.
Yeah.
And your vocal and your conversational voice apparently has the same characteristic. Anyhow, tell me who your inspirations were for your aesthetic and for
Okay.
your literary style, which I think is unto itself.
He just wants a compliment. So when I was when I was 14 years old at Christmas, he gave me a Pauline Kael collection. You know, Pauline Kael wrote about the movies for the New Yorker, and she was my favorite. She's still my favorite. So and I that's when I realized I really love nonfiction. You know, I saw what you could do with that form. That was like to me, I love nonfiction because it's like pornographic. Like you hear stuff you're not supposed to hear. There's something about fiction I just can't. It's much harder for me to take now. But anyway, I loved kind of Pauline Kael's like high libido prose, and it was conversational, super erudite, but in that kind of relaxed American way, like not fussy. So she was my. She was like dead when he gave that to me. She was not before anything. She was a few years off from grim death. Her career was over. I like coming to people when they're just about to shuffle off.
How much did you know about John Gregory Dunn before you started writing the book? And was there anything that surprised you in your research about him?
Yeah, I mean, I get that's a really great question. I actually really love his nonfiction Hollywood books. I loved Monster. You know, the marriage shocked me. I guess what I found out about the marriage shocked me. I mean, it was an incredibly tight, important, in many ways like a great marriage. But finding out that Noel arranged it, that was shocking to me. Shocking to me. I was shocked when he said. And because John, he was called Greg at that time. He went by Greg. Joan picked his name for him. She thought John Gregory Dunn sounded more serious and important, so he went from Greg Dunn to John Gregory Dunn, which is wild in itself. But just finding out that Noel, Joan does not have a romantic or sexual quality to me exactly. Like there's an anodyne quality to her. And to know that she had been so kind of romantically and sexually infatuated with someone was totally fascinating, and that it wasn't. The marriage to John, I can't emphasize how important it was and how truly together they were, but just to find out that another man picked him,
Yeah.
it was so shocking to me. I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind.
Or that Joan went along with it. Like she.
Yes,
like,
and it felt
sort
very
of
old-fashioned, like Victorian. It was her way
Like
of
an
being
arranged
married to
marriage.
Noel.
Yeah.
It was an arranged marriage, but her way of being married to Noel. That was insane to me. Anyway,
Love Noel.
that's it. Dan, do you want to talk?
I do. I always want to talk.
Who's Dan?
Dan Mallory. We are friends.
Oh.
He named his girl dog, after my male son.
She's right here.
Ike. Hello, Ike. That is a great-looking dog.
She loved that.
She got a total shout-out. Looking good, baby.
Lili, I was thinking earlier as you were speaking about these writers who self-mythologize,
Yeah.
from Hemingway and Fitzgerald to Didion, to an extent Eve.
Yeah.
50 years from now, who do you think someone in your position would look back on who is writing right now and think, ooh, that's someone interesting?
I mean, the only ones are the ones I'm doing, like Brett and Donna.
Yeah.
But they're 14 to 15 years older than I am. It just seems to have. I just feel like the air's leaked out of the culture in terms of novelists. Like it's just not. It goes back to your question. Where I think like maybe they'll be doing it about Lena Dunham. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
who captures the imagination in that way. Like Lana Del Rey. I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Who also wrote a great song about Harvey Weinstein. Much like. Anyway, I'm kidding. Her song Cola. Anyway, I didn't mean to bring that up. But it doesn't seem like writers live that big to me anymore. It's like a question of cultural centrality. Like Hemingway was at the center of the culture. Joan was at the center of the culture. I just don't see that now.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking me a non-starter question, Dan. Just fucking with you. It was great.